It's a magical marketing combo of giant animal robots, self-propelled action features, and a play structure where building the toy is part of the fun. Cartoons, comics, international appeal. How could it be anything less than the most successful toy line and media franchise today? Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Zoids. Thank you to Magic Spoon for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description below and use code TOYGALAXY for $5 off your order today. Magic Spoon is here to help you start your day off right, not just by eating breakfast, not just by eating something that's good for you for breakfast, but by eating something that's good for you for breakfast that also looks and tastes like the cereal you ate when you were a kid. Magic Spoon has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving. Also only 140 calories. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb. Fruity. That flavor takes me back, watching Saturday morning cartoons before playing some video games, riding my bike around the neighborhood, sorting my action figures, and reorganizing my comic books. Man, that's gotta be what, 2-3 weeks ago now? Build your own variety pack with maple waffle, honey nut, and a whole bunch of other awesome flavors. You can add the cookies and cream and cocoa peanut butter flavor cereal bars to your variety box. And don't forget, Magic Spoon ships to Canada and the UK. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee, so if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Use my code TOYGALAXY for $5 off your delicious and healthy Magic Spoon cereal. Go to magicspoon.com/TOYGALAXY to save $5 today. Thanks again to Magic Spoon. Zoids is an extensive brand that has spanned over 40 years with products made by multiple companies around the world. We cannot possibly cover everything in this video. Instead, we're focusing on the Zoids experience as it pertains to the US audience, when it first arrived and why, how it came here and where it's going. And I do want to call out 2 specific Zoids, Guy Sack and Wardick, now, in case they don't come up again later. Zoids is a line of robotic animal toys produced by Tomy that first came to the US in 1983. It has been rebooted and repackaged multiple times over the decades and featured in a variety of cartoons and comics, trying to find that special formula that will finally crown it one of the top 50 toy lines in the US. Zoids are mechanical creatures whose appearance is inspired by animals, dinosaurs, insects, fish, mythological creatures, and Godzilla. Are they from the prehistoric past or the distant future? Are they gladiators in the arena or war machines? Zoids are, depending on the series, either piloted mechs, techno-organic life forms, or both. They have been the weapons of oppression for a sprawling empire and the tools of liberation by those brave enough to fight. Whether they're from a distant universe or fighting alongside Spider-Man, Zoids have made a name and place for themselves unique among all other giant robots before or since, built and sustained by your imagination. Before there were Zoids, there was Mechabonica, a series of 3 model kits by Japanese toy company Tomy, released in Japan in 1982. Tomy was a toy company known for its technical innovations in toy design, lots of die-cast cars, mini arcade games, and wind-up toys. Mechabonica is a portmanteau of mechanical bones, because, you know, the robots look like animal skeletons.
The bones are the skeletons' money. In our world, bones equal dollars.
3 characters, a T-Rex-inspired robot called Mechagiras, a duck-looking thing called Mechatoros, and a tiny mammoth called Mechaphantos. Competing against a market saturated with more complex, more elaborate, more spectacular robot toys, things like Poppy's Machine Robo and Takara's Diaclone and Microman toys, Mechabonica was quickly canceled. At the same time, toy companies in the United States were licensing and importing pretty much everything from Japan that looked or acted like a robot.
We're licensing and importing pretty much everything from Japan that looked or acted like a robot.
So, Tomy dumped the rest of their Mechabonica inventory, repackaged in Spain as a line called Starzetta, and in the US and Europe as a line called Zoids. Starzetta promptly bombed worse than Mechabonica had in Japan, but in the US and Europe, the toys found an audience. The line was expanded to 6 model kits, adding an aqua-type or frog Zoid and a spider-type Zoid, as well as the first battery-operated Zoid, a brontosaurus named Giant Zerk. Zoids performed better in the US and Europe than it had in Japan, prompting Tomy to reintroduce the line back to Japan with the Zoids branding in 1983. To refresh the US line, Tomy released two new Zoids called Power Zoids. Serpent and Tank were designed around their battery-operated features. 1984 was a big year for robots in the US, a dense, oversaturated market where success was aided by unregulated television marketing to kids that allowed toy manufacturers to bombard the audience with their products on television, in comic books, and licensed merchandise encompassing everything from stickers to bed sheets. A walk down the toy aisle in 1984 would have seen Zoids fighting for shelf space next to other robot-centric lines like Ideal's RoboForce and Hasbro's Transformers, Matchbox Voltron, Revell's pre-Harmony Gold Robotech, Series 2 of Bandai's Godaikins, which included Toei Spider-Man's Leopardon, and Remco's Mantech. 1984 also took the line in different directions depending on your geography. In Japan, dozens of new Zoids were rolled out, expanding the line to over 60 different models by 1990. In the US, Zoids birthed a spin-off line called Starriers. Starriers was developed in partnership with Marvel Comics. The toys were simpler, the mythology more complex. To learn more about that, please check out our video, The History of Starriers. The short version, 4 issues of the comic, 1 wave of toys, and Starriers was in the clearance bins. Starriers was replaced by Robo Strux in 1985 and 86 in North America. Robo Strux Starriers was replaced by Robo Strux in 1985 and 86 in North America. Robo Strux brought over all of the models that had been released in Japan since 1983, in many cases recolored. Some with wind-up features, some with battery-operated features. Robo Strux didn't last long either. It is possible that the line was too expensive for parents, too unfamiliar, still without any supporting media or comprehensive mythology. It is possible that kids were only interested in toys that had a daily television show to connect with the characters, to understand how to play with them. In Japan in 1990, the Zoids line as it had been known since the early 80s ended. In 1991, Hasbro purchased Kenner, and in 1994, Kenner reintroduced Zoids in the US as Technozoids Motorized Construction System. Don't just build them, bring them to life. Once again in the US without a supporting mythology, once again mostly recycling previously released Japanese model kits, mostly with new color schemes. The focus is on building, but not building an emotional connection, not building characters. In Japan, Zoids at least had a battle story told through excerpts on the packaging. Basically 2 factions, the Helic Republic and the Xenobus Empire, and then in 1989, the Gylos Empire instead of the Xenobus Empire. The US market skipped all of that. The focus was the fantastic designs and the activity of putting them together. That is, until another globally popular franchise impacted the toy, game, comic, bed sheets marketing, reshaping it in its own image, refocusing kids' entertainment on head-to-head competition with gladiatorial combat conducted by animals trained for that purpose. In 1996, Pokémon launched in Japan with Pocket Monsters Red and Green on the Nintendo Game Boy and became an overnight pop culture sensation. 2 years later, in 1998, Nintendo dropped $25 million in cooperation with Hasbro and KFC to bring it to the US. That included the game, the cartoon, the movie, the shirts, hats, keychains, bed sheets, and anything else you could put a Pikachu on. Tomy themselves released PVC figures in Japan and the US, and in 1999, Tomy brought Zoids back in Japan again with a renewed focus on 2 factions of robot animals fighting each other. Once again, mostly recycled, previously released model kits, but new designs were introduced as the line progressed. The battle story of the warring factions returned, the color schemes denoting the red of the Empire, the blue of the Republic. And this time would lead to supporting media like comics and cartoons. In September of 1999, Zoids Chaotic Century aired 34 episodes in Japan that were generally adapted from a 1999 series of comics created by Michiro Ueyama, which itself was partially inspired by the battle stories developed on the packaging of Zoids over the years in Japan. Chaotic Century immediately dovetailed into a second season called Zoids Guardian Force through December of 2000, which was then followed by Zoids New Century Zero from January to June of 2001. Combined with new Zoids licensee Hasbro, those cartoons would come to the US as well to finally establish a formal mythology and play pattern for the toys. Zoids New Century Zero was the first series to air in the US, even though technically it was not the first to air in Japan. Cartoon Network included Zoids New Century Zero in their Toonami programming block beginning in November of 2001. Zoids New Century Zero is a 26-episode series set in a world long after a devastating war. Zoids that were previously used for combat are now paired with humans and featured in competitions and tournaments organized by the Zoid Battle Commission. If it sounds like that's a reaction to the popularity of Pokemon, you are not wrong. Chronological order of production be damned, Zoids New Century Zero jumped the line to release in the US as a conceptual competitor to Pokemon, to exploit a market that was hungry for animals fighting animals as sport. Gone are the Empire and Republic. The series follows the Blitz team, and in particular a pilot named Bit Cloud. Bit is able to form a bond with the Liger Zero, a Zoid that no previous pilot was able to pilot. The two battling their way up the ranks of the Zoid Battle Commission while trying to stay out of trouble related to the criminal organization, the Backdraft Group.
The time has come for the Zoids. The giant Zerk is complete. Other Zoids are being assembled and primed with power. They must compete for survival, Zoid against Zoid. But whichever Zoid wins this time, there are others waiting. Zoids, monster machines with the power to move, only from Tomy.
Toonami followed New Century Zero with Zoids Chaotic Century in February of 2002. 34 episodes ran through April of 2002, followed by a second season of 33 more episodes through January of 2003. In Japan, the second season was technically a separate series called Zoids Guardian Force. Chaotic Century centers on Van Flyheit and his journey to help a girl named Fiona recover her lost memory and an ancient relic called the Zoid Eve. Their adventures take them right into the path of an ongoing war between the Helic Republic and the Gylos Empire. After some time passes between the two seasons, the war has concluded, and a joint task force called the Guardian Force has been established to ensure that peace prevails. Van's search for the Zoid Eve continues, and it is revealed to be the power source of all Zoids on the planet Z, which is the planet where all of the Zoids are from. It's about 60,000 light years away from Earth, right about there. Long ago, the Zoid Eve was intentionally depowered and sealed away in order to defeat the rampaging kaiju-like Zoid Death Soarer. Chaotic Century revealed the location of the Zoid Eve and climaxes with a final battle between the revived Death Soarer and Van Flyheit's Blade Liger. Chaotic Century was followed in the US by Zoids Fuzors. And this is where things get really hairy. Fuzors, despite the popularity of the previous two seasons, has no connection to that timeline. It is instead set in the timeline of the original Japanese battle story. Fuzors centers on a company called Mock Storm who sponsor a Zoids battling team, as this is another series where Zoids are arena combatants instead of war machines. A young delivery boy and Zoid pilot named RD operates the Liger Zero through various competitions, and like his father before him, is determined to find the Alpha Zoid. Fuzors is a term brought to Zoids by Hasbro, borrowed from their previously released Transformers Beast Wars Fuzors line. In this case, Fuzors refers to the newly discovered ability of the Zoids to combine with other Zoids. For example, RD discovers that his Liger Zero can combine with the Fire Phoenix to create a more powerful Fuzor called Liger Zero Phoenix. So tired. Zoids Fuzors was intended to be a 26-episode series, originally developed for the US audience with the potential to be exported back to Japan. 26 episodes were made, but halfway through the season, the series was canceled in the US. There are many potential reasons why that may have happened, but the most likely is that Hasbro wasn't selling enough toys to justify continuing. Fuzors would eventually air in its entirety in Japan in 2005 with some additional edits and new scenes added, which is ironic considering that shows imported from Japan are usually edited to remove characters, scenes, or references that either don't meet US standards or aren't culturally relevant, and that includes every Zoid series prior to Fuzors. From 2001 to 2004, Hasbro released toys in conjunction with the airing of the cartoons. To be expected, this meant model kits, sure, including several exclusive designs and variants, but Hasbro also expanded the range of toys that the Zoids characters could be made into. Action figures that came pre-assembled, focusing on playability, minifigures called Battle Champions for use with larger playsets, Z-builders that put the focus on quick, easy building and mix-and-match customization. The cancellation of Zoids Fuzors as both an animated series and a line of toys seemed to spell the end of Zoids in the US. However, a few years later, in 2007, Viz Media announced that they had acquired the rights to the 2005 animated series from Japan, Zoids Genesis. The fourth Zoids animated series, if you're counting in the US, Genesis again establishes a familiar setting for the series on planet Z, the world where Zoids evolved or were built, and once again there is no connection to previous Zoids series. This time focusing on a young boy named Ryuji Familon and his connection with the Murasame Liger Zoid, a connection he made when his village was attacked by bioraptors. Ryuji must join the fight and become a leader against the evil forces of the militaristic nation of Dygald and their army of Zoids. Viz Media intended for Zoids Genesis to be part of Toonami's online streaming portal called Toonami Jetstream. Reportedly, an English dub was produced sometime in 2006. However, Jetstream was decommissioned in 2009 and Genesis had yet to air. It may have been shown on Cartoon Network affiliates outside the US in 2007. There is an English trailer for the series, but there does not seem to be anything from that English dub online or anywhere else that we could find. It is likely that Viz Media's rights to the series expired in 2011. It is also likely that there is a tangle of licensing rights preventing anything from moving further on any of the early 2000s series. But don't lose hope. Moving on from Planet Z, Zoids Wild is also set on a post-apocalyptic world much closer to home. In fact, it's here. It's Earth. In April of 2018, Zoids Wild was released in Japan, a major reboot of the brand over a decade in the making, a 50-episode animated series that ran through June of 2019. Hasbro announced in October of 2018 that it would be bringing Wild to the US as an English dub through Entertainment One, formerly Allspark Entertainment, formerly Hasbro Studios. Hasbro initially renamed the series Zoids Bring Them to Life, and then quickly went back to the actual name. Zoids Wild centers on Arashi and once again his bond with a Liger Zoid, their adventures as they search for treasure and build team freedom. In 2019, a sequel series called Zoids Wild Zero was released in Japan, once again rebooting the series, once again unrelated to the previous characters and world building. Not actually that unusual considering long-running Japanese franchises like Gundam or American franchises like Batman that regularly release new versions every year of what is essentially the same thing. Like Zoids Wild Senki, released in 2020 straight to Takara Tomy's YouTube channel. Same world as Wild Zero, but not a direct continuation. It's a spin-off series composed of 3-minute installments. The last episode was released in March of 2021. We don't know if it's going to be continued, but you can still watch the English sub versions. Zoids has produced ample print media over the years. Comics, magazines, booklets, posters, guidebooks, card games, pamphlets, pieces of the story, chapters doing the heavy lifting of world building. There's a lot, especially since the 1999 reboot. Shogakukan released the Zoids Battle comic in 1988, a manga chronicling events from the Japanese battle story volumes 1 and 2, but the book that likely gave the Zoids their greatest Western exposure was published by Marvel UK and featured Spider-Man. In 1986, Marvel UK helped elevate the brand through a series of Spider-Man and Zoids comics. The two brands don't actually appear in stories together, unfortunately. Fortunately? Unfortunately? Half reprints of Spider-Man stories, half original stories about the Zoids. The magazine was spun out of a previous series of comics that reprinted Secret Wars comics, another toy-supporting comic book series. A young Grant Morrison contributed to Spider-Man and Zoids, in particular the seminal Black Zoid storyline, which would go unfinished due to the magazine's cancellation. The mythology developed for the Spider-Man and Zoids comics has no connection to any of the mythology created before or after. No planet Zoid star inhabited by Zoidarians, no Zoidarian empire, no Zoidzilla. It is not canon. Zoids have been featured in a lot of video games, beginning with Zoids The Battle Begins in 1985. Based on the European Zoids, it was released for the Commodore 64, Amstrad CPC, ZX Spectrum, and MSX. The Battle Begins let players take control of a spider Zoid searching for parts to repair a mighty Zoidzilla, because the Red Zoid forces are bearing down and Zoidzilla is the only thing that can stop them. There have been Zoids games for the NES, the GameCube, PS1, PS2, Xbox 360, Game Boy, DS, PC, Mac, and even arcade releases, most of them exclusive to Japan, but 2020 saw Zoids Wild King of Beasts ported to the US for the Nintendo Switch. There have been webcomics, soundtracks, non-continuity and promotional videos, music collections, and licensed merchandise, and today, it's easier than ever before to purchase all of it direct from Japan, whether they were adapted to the US market or not. There are over 200 different unique Zoids designs, something for every robot lover. Many models in multiple colors and different degrees of complexity with and without motorized features. Whether you want to dive into the deep mythology, play the video games, or disregard all of that, just to pit a robot fish against a robot scorpion, Zoids continually reinvents itself while staying true to the core. As a line that began as and continues to be, built on the assembly experience and powered by the adventures that you bring to it. Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to those of you who already are. Head over to our merch store at beanscannon.com or click the link down below to get yourself some torso decoration or a hot chocolate mug. If you're in the position to help the chocolate grow, if you would like early access to the videos ad-free, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/toygalaxy. There's a new tier you need to set up. Let us know in the comments down below if you've ever put a Zoid together. What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? To be clear, Gaisak is the Japanese name. It goes by Goosak in the US. And Wardick is War Shark in the US. As usual, some things need to be adjusted for localization. We can't have American kids out there playing with their war dicks. Leave that for when they grow up to be senators.
Cut.